I'm actually happy if you have come here without much knowledge of either Greek drama or the play itself, because I think really sometimes our preconceptions are not particularly conducive to understanding. I'm doing justice to things. Okay, let's see now. So one of the most perplexing paradoxes, I think, in the teaching of Greek drama is, on one hand, how popular it is in classical curricula, both in secondary school and at the university level, but on the other, how little the theatrical aspects of Greek drama, one would say drama's very essence, the elements that make it distinct as a genre in the corpus of Greek literature, are taught. And when I say taught, I do not just mean giving information about, for example, the number of actors and chorus members, nor showing related material cultural artifacts like vase paintings, okay, that depict costumes or masks of the theatrical space. These have their value, but when I suggest that theatrical aspects of Greek drama need to be taught, I mean to teach them as integral parts of the meaning of each play, as elements of the plays which carry meaning alongside and in addition to the meaning that the spoken words did. Now, seeking to explore these plays' performative elements as carrying significant meaning brings us very many steps closer, I believe, to what they were and how they worked as media of communication. So, a disclaimer here. So, as you will see, I use modern images, throughout to evoke what I mean, but I don't suggest, of course, that these images have anything to do with kind of the ancient Greek, actual, experience. But I find that, perhaps on an evocative level, you will be able to relate to my argument on performance a lot better. So it helps us understand the complexities of performance, if we look closely at it, with performance as this multidimensional experience where not only words, which we're used to from the pages of the book, but also body movement, gesture, color, texture, placing in the theatrical space, all contribute to meaning. And ultimately, since performance lay at the heart of Greek life, understanding more depth a significant dimension of Greek culture, about which I spoke briefly before. Okay, so let's just start from the basics, which I'm sure many of you have heard already and which I already mentioned briefly before. Okay, so all plays were written to be performed. Most likely, for the very first time, at the Theatre of Dionysus in Athens, but also very likely, as I said again, at many other theatres around Athens, theatres in the countryside, including theatres abroad. The dramatic festivals that hosted these events, again, as we said, were, as suggested, at the heart of the cities and these communities' life, and attracted thousands of audience, and the expenditure of them, both of time and effort, but also money, was staggering. Now, the space for which these plays were composed looked something like this, in the 5th century. Or according to other scholars, because there are debates for everything, we do not accept the theory of circular theatres like this. Either way, you can't help but notice that the main presence that dominates the theatrical space in this enormous building, the main presence that dominates the theatrical space is this enormous building. And for a better view, now let's look at it from the viewpoint of the audience, which, as archaeological studies show, was 18 to 20 meters long, hardly possible to miss. Now, although a temporary construction on the beaten earth of the acting area, and probably carrying minimal scenery for every play, it was really the focal point of every production. large in size, large in significance. But I will get to this later. Now, with this space as a point of reference, up to 3 actors and up to 15 chorus members in tragedy, okay, at double, we said in comedy, almost double, acted the plays. The entire play was performed in rhythm, sometimes spoken, sometimes more distinct and energetic, like chanting, and with many parts of it sung and danced to the music of the hours. Okay? Now, this already makes for a multi-sensory, multi-leveled experience. Needless to say, the songs of the choruses were nothing like interludes to mark breaks between the scenes, nor of course to fill in the actions as we mistakenly tend sometimes to perceive them today. They had important functions, for example, recalling and helping the audience visualize episodes of Greek myth. Michael made some references to, such myth that would have been recalled through the songs of the chorus that were relevant to the interpretation of the play, or creating in the imagination of the audience narratives and faraway spaces that gave additional dimensions of richness to the immediate theatrical experience, including the space and events that took place or had taken place, like many killings of these children, inside the house. Anything that the place, due to the technological restrictions, missed out in respect of representational possibilities, they gained with these horizon-opening and imagination-firing songs of the chorus. Now, as you can imagine, one could talk for hours about all these theatrical dimensions, in every play. Time constraints do not allow me to expand in the significance of every single one of them in Medea. So, in this talk, I will focus on this space, okay? The house and its interior. The space that dominates, as we saw, Greek drama performance. It is really surprising how little attention is paid to this hugely significant space when we teach it, when it is at the very essence of Greek tragedy. And sometimes, as I will tell you in the questions or in another talk, maybe in a future festival, in comedy as well. Now, I am saying at the very essence of Greek tragedy, and one of the reasons is that Greek tragedy is more often than not about a family, familial conflicts, familial pasts, familial situations, and inherited characteristics impossible for the characters to escape from, the essence of tragicality. And so, what situations that you would rightly call today a family curse, an idea that tragedy is fascinated with. A house captures everything that is powerful but also possibly disturbing about a familial structure, a familial unit. From the plays that draw on the myth of Oedipus, Antigone, or the Oedipus plays, Seven Against Thebes, to those of the house of the Athenian family in Argos, the Oresteia, Orestes, and the Electra plays, a family's past, its dark secrets, disturbing relationship between members, oppressive situations, repressed feelings and thoughts, but also, since these plays often concern themselves with the royal elite, also the family's compulsive self-interest and obsession with power and wealth that is at odds with the polis are captured by this interior space. And if you think about it, there is no surprise that we have all this metaphorical darkness concentrated into this space. Because Greek theatre, as you remember, was performed in the open, in the bright light of day. And this space, the space of the Skene building, was probably the only space not reached by natural light. Now, to bring you, before I get to Medea, I'll bring you, many of the examples just to familiarize ourselves with the significance of the house. To bring you some of the many examples, the Atriid family's murderous relationship to itself, its self-wounding, psychopathological urge to self-destruct and destroy others, for example, is captured by this extremely famous key scene, the tapestry scene at the center of the Oresteia, where a stream of dark red fabrics, evoking a river of blood, is spread out to flow out of the house, and symbolically to capture the blood that has been shed due to the family's curse. Okay, curse also in the sense of destructive and self-destructive obsession with wealth and power, and the murderousness that this leads to. Now, this still is from a production of the Oresteia at the National Theatre, 1981 actually, which used scholarship and followed very closely the dramaturgy of the play as it is, depicted in the text. So I'll be using quite a lot of stills from this performance. Now, the house in the Oresteia has an even more sinister function, as throughout the trilogy we're constantly left with a suggestion that it hides in its insides, in its bowels, the fury or the furies. Okay? Furies are demonic presences which are imagined as permanently inhabiting and lurking in that interior, influencing the family members' actions and behavior. As, for example, the prophetess Cassandra says in horror, in the scene that follows the tapestry scene. Okay, this is again a still from the same production, but this is what Cassandra says. There is a group of singers that never leaves this house. Okay, so she says this while looking at the house with the door closed. So she's seeing these visions of the furies inside the house. They sing in unison, but not pleasantly, for their words speak of evil. Moreover, this rebel band drinks human blood, thus emboldening itself, and then remains in the house, hard to send away. The band of the house's kindred furies. Besetting the chambers of the house, they sing a song of the ruinous folly that first began at home. The furies, also known as Erinyes, are highly complex entities now of the Greek mythic and religious imagination, perhaps more so than other divine powers, and I think this kind of builds on what Michael spoke to you about earlier on. They should be understood as both cosmic forces, but also psychological forces, okay, forces that operate in the interiors of humans. So the fury or Erinyes of the house is not an image. The fury or Erinyes of the house is not an image which only appears in the Oresteia, unlike what we sometimes are made to think. Those of you who attended last year's Ancient Drama Festival were shown how the presence of the house and its fury in Sophocles' Antigone, the play we produced last year, is hugely significant for suggesting the inescapable and disturbing elements in the family society, okay, their curse, and should inform our reading even of the brave heroine's character that otherwise we might see in very black and white terms. Now, with the knowledge of, the role of the house and what's the demonic element that lies inside it, we can see Antigone's character in much more complex terms. In the dramatization of this myth in Greek tragedy, the psyche, the demonic power of the house, is imagined like a pneuma, or a sort of wind or breath inside the interior that possesses the members of the house. And first in a play that dramatizes the myth of Antigone, the Seven Against Thebes, this is what the chorus said. For the controlling power of the house may perhaps, given time, change the wind of your spirit and blow with a gentle breath, but at present it is still seething. This concerns the brother of Antigone. But then for Antigone herself, in Sophocles' homonymous play, the same blasts of the same winds of the spirit still possess her. So, but the power of the house does not exhaust itself in such references to the fury, but is evoked in many other ways as well, okay, so beyond the fury now. For example, in Oedipus the King, the play climaxes and closes with a hero who has just discovered his true identity and self-blindly having gained full knowledge, that he murdered his father and killed his, that he murdered his father and slept with his mother and had children with her. And so this play ends with Oedipus actually wants to run away from the house. So when he's told by Creon to go back into the house, he says, "Let me go away and live on the mountain," okay, the place where he was abandoned and on Italy. My favorite haunt, I have made it famous, let me die there. Okay, away from the past of murder and incest, okay, in which the space of the house is seeked. And in the Bacchae also, I've chosen a place here that I'm hoping that some of you will have heard about. In the Bacchae, the scene of the earthquake that makes the house collapse captures the essence of what happens to Pentheus, who, in the first half of the play, very sternly resists the power of the god Dionysus. Okay, and this happens with an earthquake striking and destroying the house. So, the interior again capturing, the insides of the main character. When now King Pentheus' mind is shown now, and this kind of like heart-wrenching scene with him becoming a Maenad under the care of Dionysus. So with Pentheus' mind now invaded by the most sinister manifestation of the god Dionysus, whom until that moment Pentheus was resisting. And these are just a few examples with which I try to show you how key the space of the house in Greek dramaturgy is, and some of its central preoccupations. But I should really go to Medea now, okay? So what is the role of the house in Medea? What does Euripides do with its space? Now, as in the other plays that I made brief references to, Medea also centers around a strong connection between the mind and the psyche of the eponymous heroine with the interior space of the house. And it does this in an extraordinary way in the opening scene by constructing a very strong presence of the anguished, angry, and wildly desperate Medea, but without letting her appear on the stage for over 200 lines. Okay? The whole of the opening scene, the whole of one of the most important parts of the play. Instead, what we get is long descriptions of the heroine in the interior, like this one from the nurse. Okay, the nurse says, "Poor Medea lies fasting, giving her body up to pain, spending in ceaseless weeping all the hours since she learned that she was wronged by her husband, neither raising her face nor taking her eyes from the ground. She is as deaf to the advice of her friends as a stone or a wave of the sea, saying nothing unless perchance to turn her snow-white neck and weep herself for her dear father, her country, and her ancestral house that she abandoned." Now, more importantly, we don't get to see Medea on stage. Although we do not get to see Medea on stage, her mind and her soul become unambiguously identified with this interior space. As for the entire opening scene, the house echoes with screams of terrible anger and desperate anguish, okay, that are heard from inside the house, and this is all sung, okay? Like, "Oh, may a flash of lightning pierce my head." This is a voice that sounds from inside, okay? "What profit any longer for me in life? Ah, may I find my rest in death and leave behind my hateful life." And with this heightened sound, the house echoes literally the desperation and fury of the woman, as well as the disconcertingly toxic atmosphere between the couple. But the presence of the children on stage now, because there are, children on stage in Euripides' script, who, as their tutor says, have just come back fresh from their games outside, make this toxic atmosphere even more poignant. But the house is not there only to echo and reflect Medea's disturbed interiors. It becomes very significant at such an early point of the play for giving us a clear flash of what there is to come regarding the children. So actually, the fear, the somehow suspicion about what is going to happen at the end is already as early as the opening scene. So I'll give you one example of this, and the house is quite key for this. Okay, although there are more. So look, here in Medea, the nurse turns and says to the children, "Just as I said, dear children, your mother is stirring up her feelings, stirring up her anger. Go quickly into the house, and do not come into her side or approach her, but beware of her fierce nature. Go inside as quickly as you can." Now, Euripides' text shows us that this moment, this is the moment that the children exit towards this highly toxic interior. And it is at this point that Medea says, "Oh, accursed children of a hateful mother." See the timing of this exiting process into the house. "Oh, accursed children of a hateful mother, may you perish with your father, and the whole house collapse in ruin." The image of the house collapsing as the children enter speaks volumes. Instead of a space of nurture and protection, the house now has become a dangerous space that threatens its members. And from now on, the children, or the image of children, will be used in similar subtle but disconcerting ways to suggest the horrific lengths that this domestic tragedy will go to. Finally, this scene closes with the nurse's words, and look, and you will realize why I picked these lines. The nurse, when this scene closes, says, "When the demon of the house is angry, they make the ruin far greater." Now, please keep in your minds this image of the demon, because it will be called ever more regularly, and in the most powerful way at the end, as I will show. So, by contrast, when finally Medea comes out of the house, now see now the contrast of Medea's interiors and the way she appears when she comes to the exterior. The difference in her composure is staggering. When she was inside, all we felt was raw emotion, toxic anger, and a precarious situation of a marriage that is degenerating fast. Now that Medea steps outside, she finds herself in public addressing the chorus. And she's now articulate, confident, with an impressive command of the rhetoric, demolishing ideologies that plague a woman's life, with an unmatchable force that still echoes today, and was used, very much in feminist movements in the 20th century. So this is her famous speech. Oh, this is, it's been cut a little bit. So, "Of all creatures that have breath and sensation," Medea says, "we women are the most unfortunate." Okay. First, at an exorbitant price, okay, the dowry now, we must buy a husband and take a master for our bodies. A second evil more grievous than the first. The outcome of our life striving hangs on this, whether we take a bad or a good husband, for divorce is discreditably a place for a woman, and it is not possible to refuse wedlock, of course. When a woman comes into the customs and practices of her husband's house, she must somehow divine, since she has not learned it at her own home, how she shall best deal with her husband. If after we have spent great efforts in these tasks, our husbands live with us without resenting the marriage yoke, our life is enviable. Otherwise, death is preferable. A man, whenever he is annoyed with the company of those in the house, goes elsewhere and thus rids his soul of his boredom. But we must fix our gaze on one person only. Men say that we live a life free from danger at home, while they fight with a spear. How wrong they are. I would rather stand 3 times with a shield in a battle than give birth at home once. So if you pay close attention to the focus of this speech, you realize that Medea does not talk generally about women. Okay? She talks about women's lives within marriage. In this sharp critique, the role of the house as oppressive space is particularly striking. And for those of you who actually wonder, Michael, how is it possible that in the 5th century somebody, actually articulates these thoughts? This sharp questioning of the oppressive sides of the institution of marriage in Medea is only one in dozens of instances that appear in Greek literature. Okay, from the Homeric hymn to Demeter, so 6th century, to Sappho, even earlier, to Greek tragedy. This sheds important light on the connection now between the house and Medea's state of mind. The opening scene where we saw where the house, through Medea's presence only through her screams and her anguish, now acquires extra poignancy. It is in this context of the rejection of the oppressive and almost disfiguring role of marriage in a woman's life, who, as Medea says, also has no alternative, that we should probably see Medea's disconcerting obsession with heroic ideology. Where did this come from? Which manifests already in little flashes, okay, from this speech, where Medea talks about Kleos, okay. It is almost as if, now this is, quite important, once the heroine has so sharply exposed and rejected the pathetic role of women in her place, and bursting out of the seams, almost says, okay, this is what it seems to me at least, of the house that oppresses her, she has no other identity, no other framework to turn to. And so she starts transforming into something that chillingly evokes a hero, okay, a male hero, in actually all the ambiguity that we encounter heroes elsewhere in Greek literature. Heroes like the Homeric Achilles, or the Sophoclean Ajax, or the Euripidean Heracles, all of whom are connected with amazing glory, but all of whom are connected with poignant loss of life. Okay, so this is the model that starts informing Medea's, character. I mean, it's been there in little hints from the beginning, but, this is where, it really takes on like a storm. So the most disturbing element of Medea's behavior, which I believe ultimately aims at this critique of heroic ideology. I mean, I don't know if you've read the program already, I think that critique of ideology is actually quite central to us appreciating Medea as a player. Is how frequently Medea obsesses with heroic honor and shows concern about her reputation, not as a common individual, but as a hero. Okay, so we find speeches like this from Medea to herself. Now it is a contest of courage. Okay, nun agone si hears. Do you see what is being done to you? You must not suffer mockery. Okay. Once Medea undertakes this paradoxical feat of achieving heroic glory and fame, she becomes a creature we can hardly relate to. Ultimately, she becomes a disconcerting figure who almost schizophrenically struggles between her intense maternal love for her innocent boys and her self-imposed heroic expectation. Most chillingly of all, in her final monologue, where Medea struggles with her decision to murder the children and changes her mind about 5 times. I would actually say that this is a lot more than hesitation. I mean, Medea really suffers. In these long speeches. But finally tips the balance, okay, convinces Medea to, finally commit the act and murder the children, is disturbingly Medea's obsession with heroic honor. So see what she says. Thinking about her children, I'll live bereft of you the rest of my poor life, a life of grief and pain. And you'll no more look upon your mother with those dear eyes after leaving for a different kind of life. My sons, why are you gazing at me with these eyes? Sorry, the children are on stage. Why smile at me with this final laughing smile? Sorry, I can't forget this because, we couldn't get a license to get children for our production, but so children are, on stage at this point. What shall I do? Women, my heart for this deed disappears when I catch sight of my son's shining eyes. I cannot do it. Farewell to the plans I made before. I'll take my sons away from here. Why should I do this evil to them just to bring them their father pain? When doing so, will gain me twice the wretchedness for myself. I won't. Farewell my plans. Okay, so this is Medea the mother, and now this is Medea the hero. But what has come over me? This continues, okay? Do I want to incur laughter for her? What cowardice it was in me to let these soft words even come into my mind. Begone, my sons, into the house. If anyone is not permitted to attend my sacrifice, this is his own concern. I won't let this hand fail. Now, under multiple pressures in front of our eyes, Medea has transformed into a creature that we can no longer place anywhere in our experience. A disconcerting mixture of intensely loving mother and an honor-obsessed hero that destroys innocent life, even the life of children for heroic honor. She says another speech, come on, put on your armor, okay, in my heart. Why do I put off doing this terrible deed that must be done? Come, luckless hand, take the sword, take it, and go to your life's miserable goal. Do not weaken. Do not remember that you loved children, that you gave them life. Instead, for this brief day, forget them, and then mourn hereafter. For even if you kill them, they were dear to you. Oh, what a wretched woman I am. As we are to expect, the house takes center stage now in this final degeneration of Medea's mind, and her transformation into a killing machine that is driven by some disturbing pursuit of her own honor. With these words, Medea enters the house and kills the children. The theatrical space reverberates as the theatrical space reverberates with their anguished screams. Now Jason arrives, having witnessed the horrific death of his new bride, and is told that the children are dead. In the convention of Greek tragedy, now we would expect an epiclema, so a theatrical trolley, a theatrical platform on wheels, to come out of the interior of the house and show the dead bodies, to the audience. So this is what we expect to see. And yet, we see something even more shocking. The house door remains shut, and Medea defies our expectations by appearing aloft in a winged chariot over the house. Okay, so now, so I'll record now some video media to capture this last scene. Now, this is from a clip from Yukio Ninagawa's 1984 Medea in an outdoor theater in Athens. But I think it kind of captures it in the best way, in my opinion. So just let me supposed to be a video. Sorry. Sorry, the technical stuff. Oh gosh, there's no sorry, thank you. Oh. It doesn't matter. I think, maybe, yes, it doesn't matter. So it's, I mean, out of all the clips, I have images from the production, actually. Out of all the clips that are out there on YouTube, out of all the videos, I would highly recommend you to have a look at this Ninagawa, the Japanese director, production of Euripides, Medea. So these are some images. Okay, so this is what we get at the end. Now, what are we to make of this final scene? Now, here comes our knowledge of a long tragic tradition that concerns the house, starting from Aeschylus and the Odyssey, going on to the Oedipus plays, and so on. The chorus's words had already captured the escalating metamorphosis of Medea into this horrific figure we see at the end. Medea, they had said, is anything but human. She's a fury, an outlandish creature of nightmares. This is what the chorus says. Oh, God-born light, prevent her, stop her, take from this house this wretch, this fury, bold, bloody, and inspired by demons of revenge. It is now that our knowledge of the demon of the house that was mentioned at the beginning, and also Medea herself actually makes mentions to this demon, even to herself as the curse of the house. It is now that our knowledge of the demon of the house becomes, particularly, important. Ninagabo has captured this in this iconic production by turning Medea into a figure that resembles something outlandish. Neither a human nor a divine entity, neither a male nor a female. I mean, to a very large degree, this is, what Euripides has done already, with the transformation of Medea, this kind of disconcerting transformation of Medea. I guess it is difficult, and I don't promise, to give you kind of final answer, but it is difficult to make full sense of this extremely disturbing and complex scene. And I would like you really to make up your own minds, but I perceive this as an escalation and disturbing climax of the transformation of Medea into this unrecognizable character that we saw manifesting and creeping on her earlier on, with Medea's heroic obsession with restoring justice. In creating this disconcerting figure of Medea, Euripides uses this powerful figure of the Fury. Creatures that in Greek tragedy, starting already from the Oresteia, beset a house embodying a psychopathology in direct relation to the pressures, the conflicts, and the injustices committed in the house and in society. Like the Furies, Medea, we must remember, does what she does by convincing herself that she's punishing injustice and restoring justice, very much what the Furies do. So what might be our conclusion? Now the house is normally the unit of the smallest unit of society, the cornerstone of our civilized society, and the place of creating and nurturing life. And yet, due to the structures and contradictions of societies, a fury, or a destructive and self-destructive pathology, is never too far from a house. I have always thought that the utter horror and shock of this last scene does not concern just characters, personalities, or domestic tragedies only. In my view, the horror of the last scene captures nothing else but the failure of human societies, despite, or perhaps because of, their ideological structures rigid, sometimes tyrannical, and self-contradictory, as all ideologies are, to protect the value of human life and the cornerstone of human relationships, that of parents and children. Thank you. We have 10 minutes for questions, whether this is your first time of engaging with kind of performance or theatrical aspects, I would actually like this, this safety curtain to be lifted so that maybe you can reflect on some choices, some decisions we have made in relation to the set of our play. But I would really like to hear, comments, questions or, thoughts that you have that you want to share. Anything, it doesn't have to be really related to Medea. The whole idea of the whole idea of, kind of the interior of the house and the feeling of the house. Yes, please.
What do you think Euripides' intention is in presenting such a value?
Sorry, I'm told that I need to stand here, but then I can't really hear what they're saying. Sorry, I'll come back. Yes, then? What, can you repeat your question?
I said, what do you think Euripides' intention is to present such an anti-woman as we do?
So as an anti-woman, actually, I would say that Medea is not so much an anti-woman. In many ways, she's an extreme version of, of a lot of things. In many ways, she's a I mean, she's a model. I mean, this is how she's presented in the play. She was a model wife. She's a deeply, loving mother. I mean, you can't, when you read, when you study the play, you can't quite read these things. I mean, we do sympathize with Medea, and we do sympathize with Medea's plight to a very large degree. But I mean, it is exactly this contradiction that I think is at the very heart of Euripides' play. I mean, how how humans, people like, everybody is subjected to, identities and models that they're expected to conform to. Medea has gone to the other extreme. So from one extreme of being, like a model and wife, like a loving mother, we see her going to the other extreme. It's almost like an experiment of Euripides with the contradiction of ideologies when it clash together. So, for example, and it's not only Medea that is, kind of subjected to such pressures. It's, also Jason. Jason himself is a man that is supposed to, kind of provide to his family, have status. But how can he do all of these things if his status is that what it is in the beginning of the play? So, we have, characters that, act not only, under, their own kind of, psychological traits, but also under extreme pressures. And in a way, Medea is almost pushed on the side. Okay, so she's pushed on the side and becomes something that's really unrecognizable for us. Okay. So I don't know, I would not necessarily say that Medea is straightforwardly a character that is anti-woman. She has actually a lot of, characteristics that, when she talks about the role of women in marriage, this is a speech that, you can really, really kind of feel the force of and not disagree with almost every single thing of what Medea says about the plight of women in marriage. So it's this contradiction that is fascinating, really. Yes, please.
Do you think the gods save Medea because she's taken over by this obsession with heroic honor and justice towards...
I wouldn't say that Medea is really saved. So this is, look, the play can be read in so many different ways. So, I wouldn't really name Medea a divinity. I would name her, what Medea is presented to be at the end is this demonic figure, okay, that is kind of, it's not human, not divine, okay, you can't say, okay, so she escapes on the chariot, and does this really mean that, I don't really think that the way she's presented at the end is that she joins, the mansions of the gods and then they keep having symposia together afterwards. I think, theatre, is largely, the last scene produces shock and horror, and makes you think and wonder, and perhaps this is where you should live. So, I wouldn't really think, and also think a lot about kind of, imagine now that every actor can play this last speech in so many different ways. So you can have a triumphant Medea, but you can also have, with a very good actor, you can also have a triumphant Medea and the one that is wretched and destroyed at the same time. Think that what I was saying before, that's why also it's important to think of these plays. They as theatrical pieces. So, it depends really on how you render it also, on performance, and how every director, would, Euripides may have one idea, but then later on, these plays kind of travel, yes, and can be played, in different ways. Yes, please.
Medea's actions.
So can you speak up? Sorry, can you speak up, please?
Do you think Medea's actions can be justified?
Medea's actions would be justified? No, okay, no, but I can't help feeling that I sympathize. And I mean, I think that is generally, like, you know, when you study the play, when you read these, you know, speeches, you can't help sympathizing with her, but be horrified by her at the same time. And this kind of liminal position, kind of in between, has a value of its own, okay? It makes you question, like, you know, do I actually sympathize now with her? Do I actually find that what she does is justified? And you know, why do I even feel that? Okay, so I mean, I would say, I mean, there are no easy answers. I mean, for me, what is clear, really, is, you know, how kind of the social structures and ideologies are really kind of cracking, you know, in that play. Yes, please.
Do you think that's immoral?
I think there's a moral. I mean, again, like, you know, I mean, Greek theatre very rarely sees things in black and white. And I mean, certainly the moral is not that, you know, it's okay to kill your children, but okay, so, but I mean, I wouldn't say. I mean, Euripides and Sophocles and Aeschylus, I mean, they're not. I mean, we're not really used to very easy answers. I mean, there is almost no play that is, I mean, completely unambiguously kind of triumphant at the end. So I would say that even the shock and the questioning and the kind of left wandering, you know, in itself is a moral in a way. Yeah. Yeah. Yes, please.
Why do you think the Greeks relied so much on one or two methods of portraying the rest and everything?
Sorry then, yes.
Why do you think the Greeks only relied on mythology methods of portraying death?
Okay, so why did the Greeks, it's a very good question, why did the Greeks in tragedy, okay, so relied on one or two methods of portraying death? You mean inside the house, like all murders, is this what you mean?
Yeah, like why was this particularly individual as a surprising way of portraying the death?
Okay, yes. I mean, okay, so from what has survived, okay, from what we see, all deaths in Greek tragedy, you know, happen actually inside or even on the threshold of the skene door. Okay, even Ajax, for example, was supposed to follow his spear. I mean, there is a school, and I'm, you know, part of it that thinks that actually Ajax is pulled inside. Why is this? A very good question. I mean, the skene building has a long tradition of being identified actually with Hades, okay, with a place of death. I mean, this again plays very nicely with what we were saying until now, with you know, about kind of, you know, the house was kind of an oppressive space. But I mean, you know, almost every single Greek tragedy you would see. I mean, even comedy actually picks up on that. It's so much, you know, kind of accepted as a norm that comedy even picks up on that. And every Greek tragedy has got, I mean, either a staging of somebody dying, like for example Cassandra says, I now go into the house of Hades, and she enters the house of the Oresteia, okay, to die. Or an evocation of that, okay, so kind of the place inside as kind of a death-like space. I mean, it's all about, I mean, Greek tragedy is really about the very big questions, isn't it? So, like, you know, questions about kind of life and death, and, you know, is, you know, I mean, it's, and I mean, this unseen quality of the inside, this invisible quality of the inside, the dark place that is inside, really kind of renders, you know, makes itself quite, you know, evocative of the place of no sin, which is Hades, essentially, okay, no sin, Hades. Yes, please.
Why do you think tragedy was so popular amongst the Greek people, especially other genres?
Okay, so why was tragedy, excellent question, why was tragedy so popular among the Greeks? You're absolutely right. I think tragedy dominates, the cultural scene, in the 5th century so much that, we almost really kind of lose the tracks of, other kind of genres. On one hand, this is the multi-dimensionality, the multimedia. So the song culture, okay, the performance culture, kind of rhetoric, philosophy, everything is almost, put together into that kind of multi-dimensional means. But it is, Greek culture is par excellence a performance culture. And seeing really the myths that you were brought up with, that you were used to visualizing when you heard the songs of the kind of the thousands of years of song culture, actually seeing them taking place on the stage must have really made an enormous impression on the Greeks. It was the thing to do, I think. Yes, please. Are you in this school here? Are you from a drama? Are you from a? Did you have a drama module or a classics module? A classics module. Okay, great. Okay, so yes, carry on, please.
Is there a particular reason beyond obvious theology as to why philosophy and theology are so intrinsically woven into
Okay, sorry, again, I'm going to come closer. Let's just speak out, please.
Is there a specific reason beyond obvious religion as to why religion and philosophy are woven so deeply into pretty much all Greek theatre?
Okay, so that's it. How long do you have? A huge question. Okay, so religion and philosophy. First of all, where are the boundaries really? And where are the boundaries in all of these things? Okay, so drama is in part, it's one manifestation of a religious event. Okay, so the dramatic festivals of Athens were festivals in honor of Dionysus. Okay, but at the same time, it is a festival that is very much at the heart of the city. It is kind of the highlight, along with kind of a couple of other festivals in the life of Athens. So it is the place to kind of bring citizens together and kind of reflect or celebrate the intellectual achievements of kind of Athens. And it is actually, that's why we say, I'm quite resistant to all of these questions of moral, black and white, and all of these things, because, it is really a culture of questioning, okay, bringing together, issues, and reflecting and thinking and questioning. And I think this is precisely what, what Greek theatre does, anything that is, really, for example, the sophists, okay, sophistic, when the sophists become, a thing in this questioning of religion, questioning of, tradition, questioning of everything, when, Greek drama really kind of, grabs onto that and kind of, makes its own reflections on the immediate anxieties of the citizenry, basically. Of course, there's thousands of reasons. One of the things that I always love thinking about is that theatre takes place in nature. Okay, so so many things of both things that you asked me, philosophy and religion. They're basically ways of thinking about nature, thinking about our cosmos. Okay, so and tragedy, in my opinion, is very much about the big questions. Okay, so the questions that concern, the cosmos. So one of kind of the hundreds of answers that I could give in this question.